All right, so I got the Focus here inside my garage, and got the back on dollies, so it actually rolls around really nice. And I have a fair amount of room to operate here, enough with this small car. The engine bay is looking pretty crusty. I sprayed degreaser all around it and washed it off multiple times, but it still looks pretty poor. So I'm gonna kind of go with a more detailed clean, go around, see if I can't, get the first layer off. And then there's a few things I'd like to kind of take out. This insulation piece that goes across the cowl right there, I'm just gonna take that out. It was already a rat's nest. There's like a secondary piece down here. That one's pretty well intact yet, but try and clean things up. And then all the harness is just shredded. So I don't know what I'm gonna do there yet. I might just fix that as needed. Anyway, we'll do a little touch up here. Well, as you can see, I got this starter harness bolted up. I actually had one from the Craigslist car, we'll call it. It was in a little better shape, and I think this is right, but I'm not positive, so I'm just putting it up there. I can always change it later. It'd be kind of tough to get to that starter after the fact because it'd be tucked up against the firewall. Another problem here is the harness was really bad, so I went through and like this was an area that I touched up, and you can see this black, it's like a fiber tape. It's for like loom, and then I also used some electrical tape in other spots. But went through here and kind of touched up anything that was brittle. I went and actually redid it. I believe this is the engine harness right here. And so it has a bunch of areas that were fixed up and retouched, and I suppose it gets pretty hot. So anyway, I think this is all right. I'm not positive, but we'll probably test fit the engine down in the hole here pretty quick, because I want to just see if it fits. I don't recall, I think I brought it out the top, but I don't remember what all was on there, so we're just gonna have to kind of wing it here. Alright, so here's the engine mount for this side. Basically, you just plop this guy on there, and then that big spike stud goes up through the bottom here. Alright, now once that stud is through there, you can just run this nut on it. I'm not tightening anything really yet until I get the other mounts set up. Alright, so you can see how I use that ratchet strap to kind of just change the way this is laying. And so that is at least started. So if I let down that whole side of the engine, it shouldn't fall to the ground. Now I gotta come over to this side, and basically these two studs right here, those two, and then 1, 2, 3 holes. There's a mount that goes in there, and I'll see if I can dig through the parts pile and find that. Alright, so here's that mount. I don't know, there's some sort of a damper here. That I think is prone to failing. I think people replace these somewhat regularly, but this one seems okay. All right, well there it is. It's in the engine bay now, and man, it feels really good. That was a quick, easy job, and obviously we have to hook everything up. This is kind of the first time I've seen this car kind of at its normal ride height, so I don't know, looks a little better. It had kind of that off-roader stance there for a while, but that's all right. That'll work. Yeah. So. Anyway, we have everything to put on here. I literally just put the 2 mounts on and took it off just because I wanted to see where we're at. So probably going to start in the back and in the very tightest spots there and kind of work my way forward and out is my general plan, but we'll just see how it goes. Alright, so I'm underneath the car here. I got it jacked up, and the last mount that I have to put in is this kind of roll restrictor style mount. And so you just put the first bolt in and the second bolt in, and you can actually shove it way back in there. So pretty easy here. I'll just get this all tightened up and we'll be good to go. All right, it's been a couple hours here, and I got the power steering pump, which looks pretty sorry. I got that mounted, and the lines all the way to the back. The rack is back there. It does have looks like a tiny little cooler right in here, but anyway, got that all sorted. Then the air conditioner compressor, got that put up. That was pretty easy. That I just unbolted and let down, so there wasn't really much going on there. I've tried to do a few wiring items here. That's really boring and stupid, but got that done. I think the next thing I'm going to do here is probably work on this exhaust, try and get that at least the header kind of where I want here. It looks pretty sorry. It's had a wrap on it, and I'm not crazy about how that looks. I might go someplace different with that eventually, maybe coat it or something, but at least for right now, I'll put it up, and if I have to change it, that's no problem. I can do that later. Alright, so here's the gasket I'm going to use. It's a Molly MS19292, and it's a pretty basic deal here. Going to get it set up here and get the manifold on as well. Alright, well, I totally underestimated how much of a pain that was going to be, so I got that in there. And some of the threads were a little bit screwed up from the blaster. I think when he blasted this whole head at the machine shop, I think he kind of screwed up the threads a little bit, but we got it all chased out and everything looks good. So now I grabbed my intake manifold. I'll probably start toying with that. Alright, so here's an intake manifold for one of these SVT Focus cars in the little red boots.
Sweet little boots.
Here are obviously aftermarket, but that's just what it came with, and that's okay. The one on the Craigslist car had this. And so anyway, it's got the little 3-pronged vacuum line here. This one goes to the end of the fuel rail. This one goes to, I believe, the regulator. And I'm not sure where some of these other ones go, but I'm sure we can figure it out. So we're just gonna get at least the runners tied in so we can start kind of figuring out where everything goes. Alright, well, I got all those little boots tightened, and then there's one bolt kind of down below. It's way easy to go from below with the exhaust off, so I just reached in from below and got that taken care of. So now I can basically start putting the fuel rail in that little harness section that goes like right here. I can get that mounted up, and hopefully that's most of the wiring here. Alright, I've been cruising along here, got this whole harness and all the fuel lines and vacuum lines all sorted on the back here. I got big time hung up on the fact that this fuel rail pressure sensor has the exact same connector as the alternator. So I ran this here down to the alternator and didn't realize there was a harness that comes right off the firewall to the alternator, so got me screwed up there, and whatever, got it sorted now. And then I've been kind of working over here, just kind of laid the throttle down in there, kind of where that'll go. And then like the knock sensor was kind of tricky. That one goes back and dives down to the back of the engine. And then I still need to do all the thermostat housing and like coolant lines too. So definitely a few things left to do, but we're getting there. And it hasn't been too bad of a project here so far. Just that alternator thing definitely threw me for a loop. I had to break out the wiring diagrams to try and identify the actual connector by its wire colors. That was a way that I knew I was not on the right track there. So anyway, we'll pick at this again another night. All right, next night here, and I got myself a brand new battery. It's a Never Start. And then I got my battery tray out because I was like, well, if I got a battery, then I need a tray. Well, anyway, I went in here, and that battery tray goes underneath this plate right here. So now I have to unhook this side of the engine, take that mount off, and squeak that battery tray underneath it. So that's pretty annoying. I'm also gonna do some shift cable work back here before I do that, because once that battery tray is in there, it'll be kind of a little bit more difficult to get back there. So, you know, just the flaws of making it up as you go here. All right, well, I think I got it here. I got all that mount taken apart right now. The first thing that goes in is this battery tray. Sits about like that. Then you have this little mount. Sits over it like that. Now I can put the nuts on the top here and the center nut on there, and we should be good to go. Alright, the throttle body's on, and the little bracket that holds the cables is on. And so I misspoke earlier. This looked like the battery box, but actually it's the air box. It's the part of the air intake, and the battery sits right here. So that'll make these cables work out a lot better. I was starting to fret how that was all gonna go together, but I think we're on the right path here. I got the air intake put all together. I gotta tighten that hose clamp yet. All that air box is put on there, and then I also went through and put this coolant reservoir in. Also, there's a bunch of hoses that run like back through here. Got those tightened up. The oil cooler and the heater core are both back on the back of the engine there. So got those, and the firewall, got that sorted. So I'm gonna pop the battery in, and then we're getting real close there. I don't have axles for it. The CV shafts, both of them are screwed up, so I'm gonna have to wait for those to come in, but maybe could try and crank it up here. Got to put oil in it and some other things, but at least hear it bump over would be kind of nice. Some sign of life. So anyway, we'll just keep at it here, but it's kind of just boring stuff, that like this hose right here and all those coolant lines, that's just impossible to film. So anyway, we're just plugging away. All right, so I went to go bump the starter, and the starter was completely dead. No pop, no nothing, no clicking, nothing. So I was completely dead there. So I just started checking some fuses. I found this fuse was blown, this fuse was blown, that 10, the big 20, and then one on the inside here, a 15. And so anyway, I'm going to try and crank this thing. All right, so it doesn't have any oil in it, so I'm just gonna see if it even does anything here. Clutch down. Oh yeah. Okay, so it cranked there. I left the fuel line off to see if any fuel came out. We'll see about that. So here's the fuel line. Obviously nothing came out there, so that's not great. I don't know what the issue is there exactly, but we'll deal with that later. It does not have plugs in it yet. It doesn't have anything in it, so I need to get oil in it. I need to get plugs in it, wires, and those easy things I'll do here. All right, so a nice little bit of luck here. I actually just pulled this fuse out again, just to see if it had blown like right back to back again, and actually a little bit of fuel came and spurted out of that line. So I'm just gonna do it again right quick, and we'll see what we're dealing with here. So I pulled the fuse there. All right, so we got fuel, that's good. I'm gonna go ahead and obviously put that back on there. I don't want fuel flying all over the place, but it doesn't smell skanky, so that's good. I had a fuel rail, one of the other rails from the other engine. You pour the gas out and it just smells gross, and you'll really know the difference between, you know, what I'm gonna call like gone off gas and fresh gas. You know, this isn't fresh, it's probably damn near 2 years old, probably longer actually, but it doesn't smell bad. But once you smell bad gas, you will never forget that smell. So I think this will work. All right, I got 4 spark plugs here for this engine. It's SP524. So we're gonna gap them per the manual and get them installed. All right, so here's my spark plugs. And out of the box, they're real close on gap. I'm going for 51 thousandths, so you just take 25 plus 26, makes 51 thousandths, use them together, and they should just barely fit in that gap right there, and slide through real nice, not catch or anything. So those are all set. And then if you have to adjust, all I do, and I know it's kind of not the best way, but just go here and tap a little bit, and then I'll close the gap between the strap and the electrode. And then if you want to open it, you can just take this little crappy tool, which isn't good for actually measuring, but it works okay for opening. You just stick the little strap into this part and kind of use it to pry it open and increase the gap. So anyway, we're gonna get those installed. I'll put just a little bit of anti-seize on there, and we'll be good to go. All right, so I put just a little bit of anti-seize on here. And then I grabbed my, this is a gear wrench spark plug socket, and it has a magnetic insert rather than a rubber one. So it is just a lot more convenient for actually putting these in. You know, you just get it started there and it kind of like snaps in there and it's not going anywhere. So that's a kind of a nice tool to have, and it's got the nice swivel neck on it. So anyway, that makes for threading these and getting these started really nice. Works good on my Lightning pickup too. Alright, and the torque on the spark plugs is 11 foot-pounds. So pretty light. Alright, so this is a set of plug wires that came with the car. They're pretty bad here. There's a bunch of like nicks and gouges in them and spots where it like got hot. I don't know. It's not great, but I'm going to put them in and change them when another set gets here. Like that's a spot where I'm pretty concerned. You know, you can actually see the insulation, like right there. You can see the next layer down below. So I'm gonna put them on, whatever. Well, it's probably enough to get it running and see if this thing fires up. All right, well, this is a pretty simple deal here. The short one goes to number 4. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4. And I think it makes sense to start with number 4 and just kind of keep working with it. So the posts on the coil actually have little numbers on them too, so you know exactly where you're at. Alright, so you can see the numbers on the coil there. There's a 1 and a 3 way in the back and a 2 and a 4. And those are the corresponding posts, and just run the wires. And again, that does not look great, but we'll just run with it and see how it turns out. Alright, so I ran to the parts store here, got a little bit of oil and an oil filter, and so we'll get that stuff installed and be closer to starting it up. Alright, so these underbody shots are always a little goofy, but there's the oil cooler and the hoses kick off. One goes to the heater core and one goes up to the front of the engine. I don't remember where exactly, but anyway, I'll get the oil filter up there. It's kind of going to be a little bit annoying. Oil changes on this probably won't be too much fun, but we'll get it going. Alright, I filled the crankcase with oil. Didn't quite take 5 quarts. I think 4.5 is what it calls for. Even when it was dry, I was thinking it might take a little more, but it hasn't yet. But it's also not full of oil, meaning like it hasn't coursed throughout the engine yet. So I think what I'm going to do is undo a few all the spark plug wires and try and crank this thing just to get it get some oil in it. Alright, I'm sitting inside this thing now, and I'm going to try and start it up here. The gauge on the left, I believe, is oil pressure, but if it's anything like similar vehicles of the era, it isn't really a gauge as much as just kind of a switch. So we'll see what we get here. Alright, well, nothing showed up on the gauge here just yet, so I don't know what I'm going to do yet, whether I'm going to dig in more or just throw the plugs on and start it, so we'll just see here. Alright, well, I'm feeling frisky here, so car's in neutral, and we'll just see if we get anything here. Tried to start. Pressure there. Kind of a little bit of a high idle here, but just kind of watching it. All right, well, it doesn't have any coolant in it, so I don't want to run it really long at all. But it started, so that's the most life this thing has had in it in quite some time. The trick to starting it was, it didn't want to start on its own, but I held the pedal wide open. I had held the, on some vehicles that's like a flood clear type deal, so I could smell fuel out of the tailpipe. Anyway, that seems to have done the trick there, so that's funny. Huge relief. I have no idea what it sounded like because it was so freaking loud I couldn't even I couldn't even hear anything. But I'm stoked.